Thanks everybody for joining us again for tonight's presentation. It's fun meeting food photography. A long-time Lone Club member, Teri Virbickis. She'll be sharing some of her secrets to creating stunning images of food that not only look appetizing, but they're also she said she's got 62 slides, so we'll get going on that here in minutes. Just wanted to mention a couple of other upcoming events that we've got. First of all, there's still a few slots left open for this Saturday. That's May 20th. It's photographing veteran portraits with Cliff Larson. He's limiting this workshop to 10 people, so you'll get pretty close to hands-on, one on 10, I guess. Going over an overview of lighting options, also demonstrating action session. And a lot of us have seen, he just gave a presentation maybe a group 5 months ago now. Processing that, he will go through more detail of that process and at the workshop. Participants are going to have the opportunity to use their own cameras to capture images and using the lighting setup that he's got. I think he said on there to use the recommended portrait lenses in that are anywhere from I think he said 85 to 150 million to 150. In the afternoon, he's going to again demonstrate his unique style of post-processing. And the other thing too is even though this one is kind of focuses on his veteran portraits, a lot of the lighting techniques that he uses and processing techniques that he uses in that could also carry over for standard headshots and other types of portrait photography. So that again, that's this Saturday full day workshop here at the Lone Tree Center, and again, it's limited to 10, and there's still a few spots open for that one. The next event that we have June 7th, so that's 3 weeks from tonight, competition night, and this one is open, so no themes for that one. Still working on the judge. Hopefully we'll be able to get that information out to you here in the next few days and that. But start putting your images together for again an open competition, and that is June 7th. June 21st is our next presentation, and that one is Lens Technology with Tameron's Mark Morris. July 5th, we have another competition night. So we have back-to-back months with competition nights. And that one actually is a themed event, and it's now going to be food and beverage and still life. So on that food part of it, you'll want to take close notes and pay attention to what we're going to be seeing here in a few minutes tonight. And then July 19th, we have the annual scavenger hunt. I'm sure Bruce is already coming up with a list of topics for that one, but that's always a fun event. We always enjoy that one. So July 19th. Bruce, is that going to be like that night? Do we get together and go out and shoot, or is there going to be a list where people can do it then or on their own?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is a little both. So
okay,
people want to meet somewhere, do that.
Yeah. So if you're available to meet on that, and usually that's a two-week deal, right? Where we go out and take the images, and then on the next meeting we do the showing of those and the awards of those. August 2nd is a exhibition night, similar to the one that we had just a couple of weeks ago. And going out all the way to August 16th, we have a presentation on landscape photography, and that is with Beth Brennan. One other thing, Bruce, I asked him if I could mention this one also, and he said yes. But for those that remember, we had a drone photography presentation this last year with Vic Moss, and he's actually going to be doing a workshop for the Professional Photographers of Colorado group. It's going to be Saturday, June 10th up in Golden. That's going to be, he's going to go through instruction, but it's also going to have some hands-on. They said that you don't necessarily have to own a drone to participate if you're interested in getting a drone sometime and want to learn how to use it. I'm hoping he's going to show me how to turn mine on. I think you just push the top button a couple of times and go, right? So I have a lot to learn, so I'm looking forward to that one. And that one is limited to 12, and there's still a few spots available in that. So just wanted to mention that. Again, that is Saturday, June 10th. Tonight, again, we have Teri Virbickis. Thank you for joining us here in person tonight, Teri. And just knowing Teri photographs a lot of genres of photography. I know she's has some amazing landscape photography and wildlife photography and many other types. She says not so much in the way of people photography, but one of her big specialties is stock photography. Approximately, I think 75% of your successful stock images are actually of food. So that makes tonight's topic very relevant. And her primary use of light is natural light. She did mention that she uses occasionally at the restaurants some unnatural light, or I say artificial light, but she'll do a little demonstration of what she uses as far as that goes. Her clients include restaurants that use her images for menus, advertising, and social media. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Teri.
Teri,
What I'm doing.
do you have one of these?
I have this.
Yeah, I'd clip it to your shirt.
Okay. Right. Right. All right. So here. Oh, I got
For the screen share presentation, do you want the lights on or off? I know you obviously use them on for your demonstration.
keep them on. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. This. Okay. All right. So, good evening. My name is Teri Virbickis, and as Mike said some stuff about me, I actually haven't been shooting all that long, since about 2010, 2011. My background is marketing, graphic design, and so how I got involved in photography was I worked for a very high-end vacation club that I did collateral for, and I got very frustrated finding images that I thought were usable for our collateral, and so I started going out and shooting my own. And then I got introduced like, oh, well, I'm finding these on stock. Why don't I sell my stuff on stock? And so that's kind of how I got started. And is it not working? And here we are, what, 20 plus years later, I've got about 163,000 images online for sale across 7-8 agencies. And probably any given month, it pays my bills. So continuing to do that, continuing to add to my portfolio. I'm still working a full-time gig as a marketing director. So I don't get as much time to shoot, but I'm a member of the Professional Photographers of America and the Professional Photographers of Colorado, and I'm halfway through getting to my master's degree from PPA. So I don't know why they don't have food in those, but it has upped my landscape game and my flower game majorly. So tonight's presentation is kind of a quick overview of learnings that I've learned along the way shooting for stock agencies as well as local restaurants and stuff, and from people that I've followed, people that I've joined their blogs and everything. And this is kind of like a hodgepodge of everything that I've ever learned to date, because I'm always learning. So anyway, here we go. Oh, and I would say all the food images in here, with the exception of 2, are mine. And then there's some other images I just couldn't find stuff for that I just kind of snagged off the internet just for example purposes. So here we go. All right, come on. All right, so good food photography makes you want to lick the screen, lick the paper, lick the whatever. It makes you want to take a bite out of something. So if you want to eat what you're looking at, you did a good job in the photograph. Whatever it is. That was a vanilla donut with pink frosting. So there's always, like in portrait photography, there's a star. Okay, there's something that you're trying to convey, thing that's in focus, the thing that is the most attractive in the scene. In this particular case, you can't see the French fries that are on the plate behind this, but it's like, take a bite out of the burger. That's the whole point. You want to enhance your assets. So like, for example, in this picture, photographing steam is very difficult. So there's a little magic. This was done with a incense and kind of waved in front of it before the picture was taken. So it's kind of fake steam, so to speak. So, but it helps create that, ooh, that's a hot cup of coffee. I want a hot cup of coffee. So I don't like coffee, but anyway, add water drops, all that stuff to create that drool factor. So the other thing I learned is multiples, that creating the scene of abundance, making people like, oh man, I want one more than one of those little brownie bites, and making it more enticing for the person viewing or for the particular restaurant or whoever you're shooting that particular scene for. Whoops, I went way, go back. Okay. So one of the things in food photography, no one likes hair in their food, no one likes, extra crumbs or whatever, but actually a lot of times I save crumbs and save things that I'm doing to place them in strategic places in order to make it look more enticing, like it's messy or it's like somebody enjoyed it. But a lot of times cleaning, and we'll go through some of the surfaces that I shoot on, even though I clean them immensely, they wind up with hair, and it's easier to clean it pre-processing than post-processing. So photo hygiene is very important. Garnishes. So garnishes give you a hint of what is in the dish, what you're about to taste. A lot of times I'll shoot with ingredients surrounding here, like in this tomato soup, there's carrots and there's onions and there's tomatoes and there's basil and there's Parmesan cheese. And so you kind of get an idea of what all is going on. Shoot is done in a natural light format. Similar to this type of setup, I have ceiling to floor windows that are covered with either a white sheer drape, or I use a diffuser. If we're shooting at Phil's house, it's a diffuser. Kind of diffusing the light to get rid of we want soft shadows and no highlights, and again, you'll see in the screen here, my high-tech reflector system is typically nothing more than a white piece of foam core that's split in half that I can control the light, or I have black ones, or I can take away the light, or I can put little ones and I can position them where I want to bring more light into shadows, or I can use black ones and I can put them in to take away light from a particular source that I don't want to draw attention to. So if you've ever seen my setup, it's very low tech. It's very like, oh, does she know what she's doing? But I get the results that I'm looking for. So that matters. All right, come on, why is this not? All right. So with these pulled pork sandwiches, okay, depending on the depth of field that I choose or what my client is looking for, I'm not a big fan of the focus falling off really quickly, like a very small piece of that sandwich being in focus. I like more in focus with the back being less in focus. But then I also too have clients who maybe want the top of a cake or some sort of something that is something that they want completely in focus and everything else fuzzy. Not a big fan of that, but the client's paying me for that, and that's okay with me. But uncluttered backgrounds, something that gives and starts to tell a story, like, okay, this is sliders, these are pulled pork sliders, and we got a beer in the background. So somebody had a good meal. This is my This is my, whoops, go back. This is sensitive. So this is probably my worst obsession with this. This is not my prop closet. I wish this was my prop closet because it would be organized. Can you not hear me?
No, it broke out.
No. Do I have not a battery?
Test, test, test.
No worries.
Audio problems. Fire the guy.
So I'm forever at garage sales. I'm forever at Goodwill looking for onesies, twosies. I'm a big, huge collector of old silverware. My mom's old silverware that she was given, handed down in the family. I just absolutely love to shoot in any of these. Different color plates, different color napkins, different color bowls, cutting boards, silverware, you name it. It's like my living room now is close to the prop closet. So it just has become an obsession of mine. All right, so find the money shot. This particular photo here was shot for a restaurant. And they are, if I remember, some kind of Italian wonton type of things. But this was shot under one of the times that I shoot not natural light because it was in a restaurant. So when I'm in a restaurant, I have a continuous light softbox that I have a special bulb that mimics daylight or natural light. So this is kind of what it looks like. Sometimes I will bounce it directly into the scene. This one, I believe, is bounced away onto a piece of white foam core to kind of soften the light and bring it back into the restaurants. Don't like, well, this guy didn't like the fact because I make him turn off all the lights in the restaurant because you're competing light sources. And so restaurant light is typically very yellow and very inviting, you know, kind of make you hungry type of, but it doesn't work well for shooting food. So this is one case where it is shot with unnatural light. So it looks pretty good, I think. Okay, so we're going to go really quickly through some like photography or food photography terms and what they mean.
Teri, can I ask just a quick question?
Sure.
So that image right there, you said that was shot for a restaurant.
Mhm.
So did their chefs make that and then
Yes.
place it in front of you? You
So-
didn't make that, right?
I didn't make it. No.
Okay, so when you shoot for restaurants, they make the food and you come in and shoot it.
They may, and I, a lot of times, and I don't consider myself a food stylist because there is actual position of somebody that styles the food for you. But a lot of times restaurants, let alone pay me for photography, they don't want to pay additional for a food stylist. But a food stylist would then take what the chef made and style it. Here I was the food stylist. And chose the plates, and we tried to stick to, he has two styles of what the restaurant uses, because I try when I shoot for a restaurant to make it close to what you would get if you came into the restaurant.
Right.
So he had black dishes, black flat matte dishes, as well as white shiny dishes. And so obviously, a lot of my photography, I try to shoot matte because of the highlights and specular stuff that comes with shooting very shiny dishes. So yes, he made it, but I styled it and what you see here.
So Terry, did you put any oil or anything on this to make that glisten? And
On this one, no, but other times, and we'll go, as we go through these food terms or whatever, my little toolkit in front of you has all kinds of stuff that we'll go over on how to make things look better or hold things into place. So we'll go over that as we go through here.
That one looks pretty good.
That one, yeah, but he was a nice. He didn't want a lot of extra, like a lot of times in food photography, pins will hold things into place and
know, to get the certain ingredients forward. A lot of times there's a lot of artificialness that goes into. A lot of times maybe stuffing that instead of filling that wonton, there might be, for lack of a better word, paper or something in there to make it more puffy and then just.
Like, for example, cereal bowls, they are typically filled with glue. So that your cereal doesn't stink, it doesn't get soggy. And so, and at the bottom of it, there's usually a piece of foam, some kind of styrofoam, so that it appears that the cereal is floating when actually it's sitting in a pile of glue. So a lot of times, like I said, people are like, oh, you can eat, and I'm like, no, a lot of times you don't want to eat something that's styrofoam. Like the topic. Ice cream is usually not ice cream. It's usually mashed potatoes or got some kind of concoction that doesn't melt on set. Anyway, all right. So standing food and setup. So when I'm a shoot, one of the first things I do is I try to come up with combinations of napkins, silverware, plates, depending on what I'm shooting, what background I'm shooting on. Is it for a client? Is it for a food blogger? Is it for me for stock photography? So I kind of put together in my head, like, okay, this set of dishes goes with this set of dishes goes on this background, this is more rustic, it goes on the wooden background. And so I kind of get an idea of what that is, and then I'll put in maybe just throw something on the plate so that by the time I'm ready to shoot something like in the restaurant, when the chef's ready to bring me food and it's hot, I have my setup already, the camera's at the right angle, it's all ready to go. Basically, I just take and put the food onto the plate and shoot. Okay, so that's what this is standing food and setup means. So mark the plate. So sometimes in the restaurant, they'll block out plates depending on what we're doing. So these little blocks, like I'm in the scene and I have my plates and I need to pick the plate. The chef's going to put something on the plate. I will put these little blocks around the plate to mark where it comes exactly back after the chef does whatever he's doing. So I know where it gets placed in my scene. These are very helpful to mark and keep my setups the way I want them to. Okay. We get to play with blocks. So ultimately, you're looking for the hero food. What's the end product? What are you looking for? And it may be one version of the dish, like this is the same set of ribs, shot 3 different ways. So from overhead twice, and then, well, actually these are all over. I think, didn't we shoot these all overhead that day? And so it's
Up to myself.
yes, those were made courtesy of stuff. But this is the stuff that's going to be your end product and the stuff that you're going to ultimately process. The beauty food. Okay, so spritz it or paint it. So here's kind of, and I don't know what happened to, I might have left it at your house. I have a little tiny water bottle that's about this size that's filled with water and food grade glycerin that makes awesome water drops that don't go away. This is food grade glycerin in this. I can put drops where I want them to be and they stay. Okay. I also have various types of brushes to paint on, gloss onto meat, make the sesame seeds stick where I want them to stick, just all kinds of different types of knives, different types of all kinds of stuff to paint in the scene. Part of that too comes with, and these are jewelry tools that I use to place crumbs where I want to place them, where I put sesame seeds where I want to place them, or things that I need to take out of the scene or put into a scene. I have all different types of tweezers in order to do so. And then when we get to it, roller wire that holds things where I want them to hold things, or T-pins that go into sandwiches, or, you know, like if I want the tomato to look like it's coming out of the bun, like in that burger, that was held with a pin inside of the sandwich. So again, I don't know what happened to my little spritz bottle, but anyway, it's usually in my little toolkit. I also too keep a healthy supply of Q-tip to clean stuff off, smudges on plates. It's a lot easier to do in scene than it is to do in afterwards in post-processing for less time. And then this is my, I don't know if you guys ever heard of tacky. This is like silly putty for to hold things into place, or to tilt a plate up a certain way, but it's kind of stretchy stuff. And you can make it into, you know, tall balls, like I'll want to prop up an end of a plate, so it tilts more towards me and it's not in my scene, but it's a way of, or if I wanted to stick something underneath the plate or underneath a bun, and I wanted it to stay, this stuff is awesome for that.
And that's what called silly putty?
Tacky, but it acts like silly putty. And it dries out if you don't put it in something, it dries out really quickly. It gets hard as well. So that's why it's in this little closed thing. But this comes in only even little pinches of stuff where, you know, like I want to hold a napkin a certain way, a little pinch of this underneath the napkin to get it to fold the way I want it to fold. That's a lot of times I'll use that. All right, the crown and the heel. So I know this sounds like elementary, but in the food world, it's like, I want the end of the bed, or I want the crown. So a lot of times if you're working with a food stylist, a crown means one thing and it's treated a certain way, and a heel of a bun or a heel of bread is treated a different way. So knowing that terminology and calling it correctly, because people look at you, and I've had chefs look at me like, what are you talking about? So I now know it's a crown. And we kind of talked about this a little bit, but food rigging. So I haven't tried this dot yet because this is on my list. You know how like if you see a lot of stuff flying in food, this is kind of how it's done. It's basically set up on wires off camera, and then basically when you're done in post editing, you go in and you edit out the wires so it looks like your food, and then you put it in the background. But a lot of times that's where the floor wire comes in handy to hold stuff into place, to potentially, you know, prop it up where it needs to be propped, and I can't get it to do it naturally. This stuff is awesome, and this is nothing but you can cut it really easily, and it's like super bendy, and you can get it to do pretty much whatever you want it to do. And insert it in the food, it does the same thing. You can do what you want it to do, but it's just nothing more than floral wire. Okay,
So
go ahead.
can you explain that again? Like I see a bun, meat, tomato, lettuce, and bun. I see the wires,
Right.
but sorry, I know this is so new to me. That's why I'm here. Why are they separated?
So, super assistant, their ads. It's called flying food. So this would be kind of like your hamburger coming into play and then getting stamped. So they're all frozen because it's a shot, it's not a video. They're all, basically they look like they're floating. So you would shoot the background, whatever the background is, and then you would shoot with the wires, and then in post-processing, you would go and take the wires out and then merge the background and merge the two together to get the effect that you're looking for.
Okay, I guess I'm just.
And I can show you when we're done, I can show you a final example of what I'm talking about. And
I'm just here with my processing skills. I'm trying to figure out
well, I would shoot with the background behind it. Yeah.
So you're not seeing the food like this. You would actually put something behind it.
Straight.
I got you.
It's impossible to cut that out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, absolutely, no,
Like,
totally.
oh, sense. I'm sorry. Good question. Yeah.
All right, come on, go. All right, top setup. So again, we talked about this a little bit, but my collection of silverware and my collection of napkins, I mean, they all have bins now. It's just crazy, like.
It's
yeah.
great.
And that's not even, I mean, you don't even see half of it. But anyway, frankly, before shoot is when I'll sit down, and when we get down to other parts of this presentation, I will explain some other things of what I do and the process I go through of looking for how to, what I'm looking for as far as I know I'm shooting brownies, so what kind of setups am I looking for? And that's kind of how I think of my propping, that, you know, I come up with basically a vision board of the shoot, and I have 5 or 6 different setups. And then I prop according to the vision that I have for what I want to shoot.
On the silverware and these kind of things, that do you have places that you go to look for things that are like more unique? Okay, gotcha.
I forever stop at a garage sale, and it's like I yell out the window, any silverware? And if they don't have silverware, I don't even stop.
Okay,
So
thank you.
it's
Would you find better stuff at an estate sale?
yeah,
I mean,
anywhere.
theoretically.
And it's just a matter of, you know, like everything else, it's a matter of like going into, if you've ever been to Goodwill, it's like sometimes you hit the jackpot, sometimes there's nothing there. Or like the dollar store, sometimes there's something cool there, sometimes they're not. Sometimes Hobby Lobby has like, oh my God, I can spend $300, and sometimes there's nothing there. So it's a matter of, you know, a lot of times I'm looking for something specific, and it sits in my head till I find it, and then it goes away. Most of it.
things for you.
Good Wilson.
And the thing about stock photography, yeah, the thing about stock photography, the more unique, the better chance that it sells. So I try to prop it or try to make it something that you don't see. Like I do like extensive research. If I'm shooting brownies, I'll go on to some of my stock agencies and I'll search out brownies. And typically when you do a search, it comes up with the most popular, the most downloaded, and the most sold items first. So I know what those people are shooting. I want to do something different. So I kind of, that's like one of my little intel tricks is shooting or looking at what other people do and trying to be different. And that's why I try to find the eclectic silverware, and I try to look for matte silverware, stuff that's not shiny, that's going to have reflections in it, or you know, older silverware that's maybe a little more tarnished, that doesn't carry a reflection on it. So one of the things that when I'm shooting, for example, one of the restaurants, he would do an ad in Castle Rock magazine. And so he would always be given, whether it was a half page or a quarter page or a full page or whatever he was shooting, but it always had to have breathable room. The food always had to have spots. So like in this particular thing, I would get the Southern Living and all the text on it, and I could plug in the images based on what the layout of that particular page was going to be. So then we would shoot formats or setups based on what the layout for the magazine was going to be. So this would be a good example of how the photographer, all the food is on one side and he left all the open space for all your text and all your information that's going to go in the ad, or in this case, it would be the cover of a magazine. And they actually make, if you ask magazines, they make overlays that you can put and ask for specifically to do this, so that you shoot with that in mind.
So when you,
Okay.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you were gonna give them a photo for the cover, just one side or a small one, would you give them a different size photo if you're doing that versus say like a double truck or something like that?
Well, obviously, resolution comes into play, so yeah, absolutely. So, full res for a magazine or a social media resolution, completely different. Might be a similar, like social media, most everything is square. And so the ad would then be reimagined or reshot to fit in a square, where text would be very much different, or it might be a reel or something that allows multiple images to come up with the same concept as here.
When you're shooting straight down like that, do you have things on the table at this level and you're on a chair or a ladder?
I shoot on the floor
Okay.
a lot.
Okay.
And actually I have two, and they call them apple boxes. Yep. And I have two stackable apple boxes, depending on how much off the floor I want to come. I stack the apple boxes, and then I have a piece of wood, and then I don't use wooden backgrounds anymore. I am a big fan of these surfaces because I can clean them and I can spill on them and I can do all kinds of stuff to them, and they're pretty much indestructible. So they come in what we probably have close to 40 or 50 of these now. Wood grains, we've got granite countertops, we've got marble, we've got, I happen to love this one. I mean, just all different kinds of, and in a shot, you can't really tell that it's not a real wooden background.
And I think they're light.
What is that?
These specific, like, photography,
Yeah. Yes.
not like non-reflective or.
This is made by a company called Ink and Elm, and she has a complete line that is for food photography. So they're non-glare, because that makes a difference, as well as that you can spill them and wipe them and keep them clean.
So they're like a vinyl or?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring them around and you can kind of
What was the name of the company again?
Ink and Elm.
Ink and Elm?
Ink and Elm. She sells backgrounds like for regular photography, but she also has a line specific for product and food photography.
So I'm noticing that, I want to make sure I word this properly. I'm noticing that most of the images only have certain amounts of food in them.
Correct.
So you're not shooting like buffet table type things.
I have, but
I understand that.
right.
So do you have like one lens, like for this image?
We'll get there. Yeah, we'll get to equipment, and what I typically use. So yes,
Because, okay.
I have a go-to. We're almost there, actually. So, all right. So here's kind of my little secret. Y'all know what Pinterest is, right? What is Pinterest? Yeah. So basically, when I'm going to shoot brownies. So I'm going to go onto Pinterest and I'm going to search brownies. And basically I create a board, and it's like all the things that I want to, angles and things that I like, setups that I like, certain things that I like, I put in my board. And then from there I form my little vision board for my brownie shoot. And then I base my props off of those kind of things that I found, and then come up with my 6 or 7, because I never do, even for stock photography, I probably shoot 25 to 30 shots of brownies, whether it's overhead, whether it's, and we'll go over angles of food photography here shortly, but there's all different kinds of angles of things that I want to shoot, because again, I'm a graphic designer, I want options. I want, if you give me one image and it doesn't work for what I'm doing, then I go to buy my image from somebody else. So I shoot in sets of multiple things so that, okay, from start to finish, like if I'm baking brownies, I start with the batter and I start with the ingredients and I start with, until I build to the final product. And so I give people lots of options. But Pinterest is my friend. Okay, 10 angles for food photography. All right, so choosing your angle of what you're going to shoot and how you're going to shoot it is basically, ultimately, what's the final goal of what you're looking for. Like, for example, back to the magazine article,
a lot of times those are shot from overhead because of the fact that you're gonna put a logo in there, or you're going to put text along the sides or on top of food or however. All right, so angle straight on. So this is like what it says. It's like I'm sitting here and I just shoot straight on to the food. From above, obvious. And this from above is, from above is probably one of the most popular things right now in food photography as a trend. From above, and obviously because of Instagram and social media, from above is pretty much a lot of what you see in food photography webs. All right, so angle tilting towards you. So as you can see, it looks like the plate is kind of coming up, and I believe that this is where some of my little tacky stuff was in place, getting the plate to come towards me. And then tilting away. I don't like this angle so much because to me it looks like the food is kind of sliding off the table, but it's an angle. Close up and personal. Come on. Jeez. So obviously, like a macro shot, this is turmeric powder. Angle from above with perspective, so it's not totally completely on top of it. It's kind of got a little bit of an angle.
And when you do something like this, is your focal point, like, I guess, like, where you'd be looking at on this one right here?
So in this particular photo, and it's shot at probably f11.
Okay.
The middle of the dough, cookie dough, is where my focus point is on.
So all of that part is
in
primarily in
focus.
focus. Okay.
Right, correct. On an angle. And then on an angle with respect to the line. So the food is basically drawing the line through the image. And 45 degrees. This is the other very popular, because it's like, if you think about when you're eating, this is basically the look of when you look down and you're looking at your food. This is what you see. So here's the scoop. I only use about 4 of these. So straight on, and I see a typo.
Stay.
The
new word.
From above, I would say probably 65 to 75% of what I shoot right now is from above. Angle from above with perspective. Come on.
What's your slow?
I don't know why it's so slow. And then that angle, the 45-degree angle, is the other one that I do. All right, so then maybe you ask this question. What's the best angle to shoot at? And the answer to that is really simply stupid. Whatever angle is needed for the shot that you want. So, again, majority of everything that I shoot is either at a 45-degree angle or the angle with perspective or from above. Because of what's going on food trend wise, the from above is the very popular one right now.
How often does this change, these trends of photography on this?
Yeah, well, since I've been doing it, it really hasn't. I mean, with the advent of Instagram and food bloggers and, you know, videoing, that kind of stuff, it from above has been popular for quite some time. So
That's how we see our food.
right. Well, that angle, 45-degree angle, is typical of how you look down at food, not completely straight over it.
Are there ever situations, let's say, like, you know, from above where you have, you know, whatever you're photographing is sort of tall or whatever, and you want to get everything in focus? Do you ever do like, or need to do focus stacking or anything?
You know, I haven't, because getting everything in focus in a food image, in my opinion, is distracting.
Okay.
You want to focus on what the star of the picture, what people want to, what you want people to pay attention to.
Right.
As opposed to if I have everything in focus, my eye goes, okay, here, and then I go here, and then I go here, and then I go here, and I go
Sure.
around. And when we get to some of these diagrams, you'll understand how we drive the eye through an image. So these diagrams I copied from Christina Peters, who is the Food Photography Club. And I like what she did, so I spent the time and I redrew and I put the Teri twist on them. So this is kind of like when I teach a class or a workshop, this is kind of like, okay, here's a simple setup of a plate, a bowl, fork, and just giving people who've never done food photography layout an idea of how to do it. So here would be an example of from above. Here would be an example of straight on with a slight angle. Here would be from above with elements offset. So a lot of times in food photography, you don't want to necessarily capture everything that's on your plate in front of you. You want to have things that go offset because it then causes the eye to be pulled through the image. Straight on. From above, again with elements offset. Elements that are all on set, which I rarely shoot this way. Most everything I have has some element offset. Okay, so here, if we were using, like I'm in the restaurant, the softbox, here's kind of the diffuser it goes through, and then I have the reflecting cards on either side. And my little pointer doesn't work. So it kind of reflects light, or if I want a dark, moody shot, I may turn the softbox backwards, so I have less light, and then my reflecting cards then become black to take away the light, and then I shine what little light on my hero in the front of the food that I want to highlight in that particular image. A lot of times in studio, I have never personally done this, but having multiple soft boxes that have high powered, because this is a pretty powerful light bulb, and bouncing the light off of the wall and through diffused, having cards block the light in order to give a more moody, but have less light because it's bouncing off the back of the wall.
On these slides here, is this the answer to Darren's question about the preferred lens, the 100mm macro, or is that?
And we're
just
gonna go
this
through,
issue?
yeah.
Okay, you're still going.
We're gonna go through that, okay. So now, and this is something I learned in PPA and learning that it does apply to food photography. So the Fibonacci spiral is a way of thinking how the flow of how you place things in an image, basically how the eye follows and goes through what it looks like in this image. So first thing I look at is the bowl of soup, right? And then I kind of go around and like, oh, and then I look down and I look at the peppers and I look and I come back and I see all this leaves and stuff in the napkin in front. The other one is the golden triangle. So when we shoot stuff in photography, we shoot in threes, odd numbers. So this kind of another way of bringing your viewer's eye up to the plate of brownies, then it goes back to the glasses of milk, and then it goes back off to the set. This wedge salad, same thing. It brings your eye into the salad, to the middle of the salad, you go back to the dressing, and then you go back offset. That particular wedge salad was one of those times where literally the whole entire set was surrounded with black cards, and the very front of it, enough light to highlight to bring in the wedge and light the wedge. So quote unquote a moody type of image. So again, this explains a little bit more about what the golden triangle does. And as you can see from the lines in the image, it's basically a way of balancing the elements. basically balancing. Here's my hero, here's my main character in the front, but yet I also have this guy and I also have this guy. So my eye goes immediately to the piece of pie in the front, but then it goes back to the back and it goes back to the other back. And again, we have 3, so working in odd numbers or in 3s brings harmony, brings cohesiveness, so they say, to the. All right, organize before make shot list, especially if I'm shooting for a restaurant. Do I have a light available to me? Do I go out and scout the location if need be? What type of props am I shooting at the restaurant? Am I shooting with their dishes and am I bringing stuff along with me? Or I have food stylist that part of the fee associated with that. Do I need to? I've never had this because it's usually just me, but do I need to feed crew and clients, and does that part of the contract, does the restaurant feed them? Do I feed them? That type of stuff. A lot of times, I'll have the chef, as he's making stuff, save little pouches of crumbs and stuff, because we will literally place them in strategic places to make it look more enticing. So here's where Darren's question is. All right, so camera, tripod with an arm. So in this picture here, you'll see I have a Manfrotto tripod that has an arm in the middle that is able to extend out in front of. I do not have a lot of have hanging stuff rigging. I don't have a studio, so this is how I shoot above or overhead. My sandbags, my little sandbag here that holds, balances it so my camera doesn't fall over. I have a remote shutter so that I do not touch the camera in any way, shape, or form. I typically 100mm macro and the 24-105 are my 2 go-to lenses. Majority of the time, it is the 24-105 because I have a little bit more flexibility of what I can include and what I don't need to include in the scene. Natural light source, diffuser or sheer curtains, shooting surfaces, which now have become this instead of carrying around boards. My large clips, which are these guys that hold up a lot of my reflecting sources. Assorted props, computer, Lightroom software, and I shoot really well to old 80s rock and roll. All right, 12 good tips.
So that's a shot on the floor
Yes.
or on a box on the floor.
Yeah, it's about this high off the floor.
Like this apple box.
Front of a window or.
I'm not that tall, so, and being able to see my screen and being able to see what's on set, that becomes, my particular camera does not have the ventricular thing off, so I need to be able to see what I'm shooting. So it's, for me, it's just easier to shoot on floor instead of having to climb a ladder or shoot on table. A lot of time at a restaurant, they get kind of, you're putting my food on the floor. But I have to.
Right.
Yeah. So
Do you shoot tethered?
I have, but I'm still learning that particular technique. So yeah. It's very convenient. It's just I'm still learning. So yeah.
I can
So-
appreciate that.
Go ahead.
With an image like this, I'm assuming you're shooting with your macro lens.
This one, I believe it looks like the 24-105 is on.
Okay, well, but it doesn't look like you're very far away from it, like maybe a foot,
I'm maybe this far
Oh.
above it.
but you don't focus stack at all.
No.
So you just shoot it at like f16 or a smaller aperture.
Yeah, so F11, between F11 and F16 when I'm up above, and typically the only thing that is not in focus are the very corners
So how
of an image.
much light? Like, what would be your average shutter speed? Are you at like 125th of a second or?
It ranges from, I would say, one like 25th to a half a second, depending on, like, for example, so there's a sheer, it's a sliding door that's right there, and there's a sheer curtain in front of it. So depending on if there's sunshine outside, my light and my shutter speed are much faster. If it's a cloudy day, my shutter speed is slower because of the light or lack of light that's there. So it all depends on what outside is doing. And I've also learned in the wintertime, between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon is my magic time to shoot. And in the summertime, it goes from 11 to 1 in the morning, or 11 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, based on where the sun is, at least in my particular location. So, yes.
And even at F11, F16 and so forth, and that you can still, you can still keep the ISO down, it sounds like, because you can just extend that shutter speed.
And I typically don't shoot much over 200 ISO to keep the noise out of images. I mean, granted, I have a 5D Mark IV, I could go up pretty high with ISO, but if I'm on a tripod, I honestly, and that's why I use the remote trigger, I really don't need to worry about what my shutter speed is. It doesn't have to be Johnny on the spot.
This is gonna be a really silly question, but for somebody who shoots macro, I understand the distance between the pizza and the top of one of those tomatoes or that red onion can be like 2 or 3 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And that can really throw
Correct.
your focus off. So if you focus on the pizza, it doesn't matter if the red onion is slightly out of focus.
It all depends on what look I'm going for. So a lot of times in food photography, things are out of focus deliberately because I want to shine, say, on the sausage maker, and I want to shine the sausage that's on the pizza. So it depends. When I shoot overhead, I try I try as hard as I can to get everything in focus. Okay, I have not focused stacked because I don't know, I don't want to say it's a waste of time because I understand the principle behind it, but I have not had images rejected or chefs say no, I don't like it. It's like the focus always is where it needs to be in the end result. And if it isn't, then I shoot it again.
But if you had a plate object like the pizza, and then you had larger objects, you could just raise the pizza up.
Correct.
To closer match the
Right.
plane of the tops of the rest of it.
And I did that one time. It actually wound up being in Sam's Club magazine, and it was during peach season, and I made peach salsa. And so they wanted like a bushel basket or a bowl of peaches off to the side, but then the bowl of salsa was much lower than that. I had to do just that. I had to bring the salsa up to the height of what the bushel basket full of peaches was.
Yeah.
So yeah, that does come into
There's a lot of complexities with stuff like this that a lot of people, if they've never shot stuff like this, don't know.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I learned the school of hard knocks because I'm like, oh, well, how hard can it be? It can be very hard.
It is very good.
Even shooting something flat like a rock can be a nightmare.
Right. Exactly. And there's so many things that come into play here. Like, okay, how is this going to be used? Is it going to be, do I need space for text? Do I need to have things onset, offset? Is my text going to be on the right side? Is my text going to be on the left side? Am I going to put text on top of the food? Am I going to have to put a box on top of food? Is it going to interfere with what they're trying to highlight? There's so many things that come into play with, it's not just set this up and take a picture. There's many things that come.
So composition just changes depending upon what
Right.
they or what you were trying to accomplish.
Right. And that's why when I said early on, a lot of times I'll shoot 20 or 30 of the same subject because you know, stuff on the right, stuff on the left, from above, on an angle, from straight on. It's like same subject, but different props, different angles, different open spaces, closer up.
Yeah, you might zoom in, zoom out.
Right, yeah. So, you know, by the time I get done in 2 hours, I may have 30 images of the same thing, only because I want to give whoever's buying the picture, if I'm not shooting for a specific restaurant, if I'm giving a stock to a stock agency, I give whoever's buying the image options of that particular subject.
So what was been your shortest shoot, and then what has been your longest?
So when I shot for the guy it was an Italian restaurant down in Castle Rock, I quickly learned that 4 hours is way too long to shoot. And you typically 2 hours is about all I can tolerate. And then usually by the hour and a half point, and I do a lot of prep work, so I have all my different setups ready to go. So I'm very organized, but come hour and a half, 2 hours, I'm done bending over. And and if you're on the floor, it takes a toll on your back, and it takes a toll on, I mean, it's a lot more physicality than one would think. So.
And for some of the cooked foods, there's gonna be a time limit as far as like how long it's gonna look its best, right?
Right.
I mean, there's some things that.
Totally.
Right.
Totally, yes. And the one time I did shoot ice cream, I did it in the winter time. And I did it outside so that the ice cream didn't melt. Because I did it in the summer, and literally, even with a cooler with dry ice in it, I literally had minutes before it started to melt on set under lights, and it just didn't look. So, and I wanted to shoot natural ice cream. I didn't want to shoot some hodgepodge like mashed potatoes dyed, you know, to look like strawberry ice cream with strawberry pieces in it. So I learned shooting ice cream in the winter works really well. So anyway, so never on camera flash for food, makes it look terrible. Softbox for lighting, especially restaurants, that with that particular bulb works very well for me. Proper bulb, obviously, back up and zoom in. Again, the 100mm macro and the 24-105 mid-level zoom is typically where I stay. I always shoot on a tripod. I never, ever, 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 ever handhold. My f-stop, preference of the clients. A lot of times I try to say f8 is the sweet spot for Canon cameras. So between f8, f11, I'm not a big fan of the teeny tiny spot in the picture that's in focus and everything is blurry. I don't like that look. And again, I don't. Come on. Keep my ISO as low as possible. Typically I shoot between 100 and 200. Keep the food as fresh as possible. A lot of times, especially with meat, dries out on set really quickly. That's why I have my little food glycerin and my little set of whatever paint, make it look like it's juicy. You can tell in a picture very quickly that it's been sitting around for a while. So the life of a shoot of food that's hot and it comes out is minutes before it's no good for you to shoot anymore.
Is that food glycerin, is that something that's just readily available?
Yeah, I got it. I got a big, huge bottle of it at Whole Foods.
Okay.
And I love macro flower photography. So mixing this with a little bit of water, this makes water drops that don't go anywhere. It's awesome for, and doesn't hurt the flowers. So, I use simple plates, simple colors, simple, I mean, nothing exciting. This is my new, I just bought a whole bunch of these type of backgrounds that are in all kinds of bright colors that I'm just a big fan of matching props to and with. And then I'm a prop hunter. I'm always on the look for, oh, that would be very cool to shoot ice cream, or that would be very cool to do that. And shooting on a phone, I have done that before. And so I have a series of a bunch of these little guys. I have the proverbial selfie stick that comes into a tripod. Another thing in stock photography is video. Video is a huge thing. So panning over food or pouring something into a glass, taking, short 5 to 10 second videos that someone can use as B-roll into their projects is something that's done and very popular right now, especially at food, because there's not much of that out there. All right, these are a couple of my favorite people. Souter Studios, he's here in Denver. Rick Souter, up in Golden. He shoots for big brands, McDonald's, Burger King. He is like crazy, amazing stuff. Foodie.com, the Food Photography Club, which is Christina Peters. She spoke at the PPA this past. She has an amazing. Basically, it's taking photographers and teaching them the whole entire business of food photography, from contracts to everything you could possibly think of. She's got so many online resources, and you have to pay for them, but well worth it. Bakerella, I use a lot for examples of food stuff, and then US Stock Photography Food is another place for inspiration. And believe it or not, we got through 62 slides in less than an hour. Any questions?
Yeah,
That was really
yeah.
good. Yeah, I have.
I'm cold.
You've used all your questions up.
But this is a really important one.
Okay.
So I have had this image in my head that I want to create. What would be the best, this is gonna sound silly, and you guys will probably see this image later on. What would be the best thing to do to hold coffee beans into a pile, like hairspray?
No. So I would put something underneath it. So do you know what floral foam is?
Yeah.
It's kind of squishy, but basically form it into the what you want to. Spray it with some what do they call it? Spray mount, which is basically
Like
adhesive. Yeah. And then pile your beans on top of it and get the pile that you would like. And then kind of adjust the top in order to cover the foam.
Okay.
So we know what we're gonna see. Yeah.
Well, I have to shoot the image first. I've had it in my head for about 2 years now, and I just know that I'm scared to do it because I know it's not gonna look like what I want.
You're gonna have to rig the beans into a pile. I mean, it would be very hard to, you can make a pile of beans, but to get them to the shape that you want, you're gonna have to have something food rigged underneath.
And there's a lot more stuff to the image, but if I could start with that, that would be beneficial. So thank you.
Yeah, start with the foam, the floral foam, and it's easy smushy and into certain shapes. Absolutely.
And that would be interesting to see focus stack and take it all the way through, right? If you're going, I would think.
Yeah, you guys will probably see it eventually.
So you probably would spray the beans to get them to glisten a little bit, or?
You could, I don't think typically.
Beans are fairly oily already.
If you get it really fresh, right? It's like
Yeah,
right out
and I don't think, because typically unless you're brewing them, why would you see them like soaking wet?
You don't want them wet.
You wouldn't, but I'm
Right.
just saying, to get a little bit of a sheen, otherwise you don't want to have a black blob turn out to be with no definition, is what I was
Right.
looking at.
And actually, depending on your lighting situation, because that's when this comes in, these kind of things come in handy, because I can then position this however or wherever I need the light to shine into or onto the beans specifically, as opposed to a global light source. And like I said, in any given set, I've got a whole bunch of these cut into all different types of shapes and stuff, and use these from Home Depot to kind of hold them
In place,
in place. Yeah.
Coffee beans are really roasted.
So would you mind sharing a little bit of the business aspect of it? Do you do contracts? How did you
The ones that you buy in
price
stores.
things? How did you come about all of that?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it I was taught by other people,
Shouldn't have any.
and a lot of it was trial and error. So,
I started out where like my Italian restaurant down in Castle Rock. It started out where, can you do this for me? And I'm like, sure, but I'm not going to do it for free because they were expecting it to free. And I walked away like 3 times from her until she came, you know, get what you pay for. They were posting cell phone shots that they were doing under the yellow light. And so then she finally came back to me and said, okay, let's talk. And so I'm like, okay. So I just ballparked it. And, you know, for, we did it like a per project. So, okay, they were a farm to table restaurant. So their menu was changing all the time. So she would say, okay, this week, these are the specials. I have 4 specials. I want you to come in and shoot 5 pictures of each special. And that's kind of how we did it for my time on set or my hourly rate there. And then the post-processing hourly rate. And then, does she want exclusive rights to the images? I never sell the rights to my image. I always have the rights to, she has the rights to license and use my images. So a lot of things come into play. Am I propping? Am I bringing props? That's an extra cost. Are we using props from the restaurant? I mean, there's so many things. Am I bringing a food stylist or are we styling the food? Is the chef styling the food? Am I providing the food? Is the chef providing the food? I mean, there's all kinds of things that go into a proposal of what you're shooting. So
Sounds like it's worse than a wedding.
yeah, it can be. Now, you would think that I'd be like really busy, but restaurants don't have a lot of money, especially for food photography. And I've probably walked away from more scenarios than I have done for more scenarios. Like there was and I can't think of the name. Oh, it was for Grubhub or one of those. They were hiring food photographers and they were paying you like ridiculous, like $20 an image or whatever it was, because they wanted you to go to a restaurant and shoot, and so that they could use them in the app on DoorDash or whatever. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going into somebody's restaurant and shooting, 20 images for $20. Not going to happen. So, there's opportunities like that, and there's people that do it, but I personally won't do it. So, yeah, no, my time and my end product, and I wouldn't say I'm the best at it, but I'm pretty good at it. So,
Do you have any workshops scheduled for this?
I do. But I'm open to.
So, as far as post-processing, you really didn't go into that very much, but I guess I'm most interested in, you try to get it as right as possible in the camera, it's clear with your bounce cards and stuff like that. But is there something that is just like, just do this in processing? Time and time again, there's a couple things that you just always do in post because it just takes too long in.
Yes, and so like in your workshop that we did with Lightroom, I always forever put a radial filter on top of whatever my hero portion of the image is, and it's ever so slightly lightened and a little bit more texture applied to it. 100%. I really don't vignette things because of text and all that thing that's usually put in there. I do a lot of zoomed in at 200 and 300% to make sure that I have every crumb and hair, and I literally go inch by inch across the image. Or if like in a cookie, the chocolate chip didn't melt the right way, I will swap out with another chocolate chip to make it look good. And so just to make sure that it's spot on 100% what I want or what a client wants.
And I guess my main question is, I've tried to shoot food a couple times, and the way you prop things, and you specifically said you liked to have silverware that's either matte finished or then patina, whatever. I understand that 100%, but say the restaurant has shiny silver stuff and they want their silverware in there, and you have either a light or a softbox or the window lighter. I mean, how much are you going to actually Photoshop, or do you just say, screw it?
I try very hard, and you'd be shocked at how easy this is, either black or white, like a glass, for example. If you surround that glass with this or the black, it literally takes out all reflection. And it's just a matter of, or filling the liquid, like the one example where we had the milk bottles in the background. It was literally, as long as you filled the milk to a certain spot, the reflection would go away. So it's knowing little things like that. And again, I've done that where I've shot at a restaurant with shiny stuff and then it's like, there's my face in that spoon. So having to take it out at the end, yes. But I try, like I said, these little pieces of stuff strategically placed to take out reflections and highlights does come in handy, because you'd be shocked at how easy it is to strategically place it and take it off.
So you're using it like as a flag sometimes, as opposed to like to reflect the light onto it, you're using it to block the
To
light
block,
that's coming in.
yeah, to block it and the reflecting part of it.
Do you
So
even like take a sheer curtain?
that's what, in that one
Yeah.
where we saw with the pizza, that was what was hanging. It was a $7 sheer drapery from Target that I doubled up as my diffuser.
And then you would just tape it to the window?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I'm not high tech. I'd use what works.
So do you? I know the answers, yeah, but do you ever just shoot just for yourself, where the images have no place to go other than your own satisfaction?
No,
No?
no.
Why?
Why? Because I know it's an asset and I can make money off of it. So why not?
So.
But like, let's
Do
say
you
you
put
just
it
one
in
day wake
stock?
up. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Jane.
But you said you do stock as well.
It would be an asset in my portfolio.
So it's
And-
something you've already done at a restaurant that you only license to them, you own the picture and then.
So back to our Italian guy, that was one of the things in my contract was that they licensed to use them, but I could also, they signed off on me being able to upload them to stock agencies for sale. They knew that upfront. That was not a secret. And I asked that question. Some restaurants are like, oh yeah, sure, that's fine. Other ones like, no, I don't want you to be someone else to buy my stuff and represent their restaurant. So it's a question I asked in my contract.
If they say
If they
no, do you still shoot for them?
Yeah,
Or you just?
well,
don't put
because
it in
they're
stack?
paying, they're paying me to shoot for them. It's just, to me, that was an added bonus of, like, for example, a lot of the food stuff from the Italian restaurant is still making me money today because it's being sold on my stock agency. But they have long, the father, or not father, the husband wife team that owned Vista Vino, they sold it and it's now no longer under them. And so they're not even in the restaurant business anymore. So,
And the menu's probably changed.
well, and it's under a new guy. So I haven't been there since the new guy has taken over because he has not hired me. So
Have you ever shot a client that's big enough that the usage is more than one city, like a Maggiano's or something like that?
not a restaurant, but a lot of my stuff, like I've been in Walmart ads, I've been in Sam's Club ads, I've been in Sam's Club magazines, I've been in Women's Day magazine, I've been in Good Housekeeping magazine, I've been in some pretty.
So when the usage is more than one city, do you try to get more money out of it?
That's typically how it works, and even in stock photography, the licensing of how an image is small thumbnail, royalty free, brings you a couple pennies, 50 cents or whatever. But an exclusive, I buy the exclusive rights for X amount of time and I want a billboard size, whatever, that brings me a lot of money. So it all depends on what licensing the client or whoever's buying that image is purchased. Because I have and it's probably, and it's not even a really good, it's an aspen. Anytime in the fall, I take a picture of aspen, the different colors of aspen leaves on the floor of the forest, and I stage them, usually with water drops. So Utah Board of Tourism bought one of those pictures and made it an entire wall in one of the rest stops along where I-70 and 15 meet. It's kind of to the north on 15. And when you buy it from a stock agency,
it's a JPEG format and it couldn't be blown up to, I think it was like 9 foot by 36 foot. The wall was, and they wanted it that size. So they had to contact me in order to have it resed up and sized to that, and that cost them a lot of money. But it's nice I finally, 3 years later, got out to that restaurant to see what that looked like. And it was still there, but that was like, what, 4 or 5 years ago. So who knows if it's even still
That's
there
at
now.
the end of the earth. That's where 70 ends and
Right,
15
yeah,
starts.
yeah.
There's a question from Ellen up there.
Elaine?
Or Elaine, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I can't read it.
Oh, so could you possibly warm the beans a little and make the oils come out?
Yeah, he probably could, yeah. Or back to his coffee
Oh,
beans.
yeah.
Elaine, who also does some good
Yeah, she
projects
does.
also,
Yeah.
Matt, so that's her suggestion, sounds like.
Yeah, yep. Anything else? It's
Nothing
fun.
on mine.
I like it because like you guys do portraits. I just don't deal well with people who argue back with me and who doesn't argue back, so. That's why I don't shoot portraits. I do food portraits. So just never something that I got into. I can take my time most of the time and, you know,
It's not like birds, they move.
totally.
Who just stays.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like you saw the pie, you saw, the pumpkin bread, the bunny butt cupcakes, those were all made by me. So I'm a pretty good baker / cook where I can stage a lot of my stock shots by myself.
That was gonna be one of my questions, is if you take a lot of cooking classes and so forth to be able to create the food that goes into your images.
I watch a lot of Food Network.
When are you baking next? We'll be over.
Yeah, well, I was just telling, I haven't shot lemon bars, and so I'm like, and I failed miserably at making good ones that look nice on film. So, like, I'm happy to do lemon bars.
I'm happy.
So what do you do when you guys say you want to do banana bread? You just go get a banana bread mix at the supermarket and
No, a lot of times it's made from scratch. So again, I love to bake. If I could do life over, I'd be a pastry
and then
chef.
what happens from all that after you finish making it?
Well, a lot of times I have my great nephew who lives with me. They get to eat it. If I haven't, a lot of times it's overhandled and a lot of times it goes.
Throw it away.
Right.
But like in the rib situation we
ate
ate the ribs, and then when we did the
chance.
when we did the tailgating shoot, when we had wings and a bunch of other stuff, we wound up eating that stuff too because it wasn't overhandled. So yeah,
I'm sure Phil was in there.
So you didn't eat the cereal though, right?
the cereal I actually haven't shot cereal. I've only seen other people do it, and I'm like, really? But it made sense to me as to why they do it that way.
Well, and I saw that they use Elmer's glue for the milk, right?
Right. Yeah. Floating on top of a piece of styrofoam.
Yeah,
So like you said, to give it that look that you can,
Right.
like just pouring real milk into
So
it.
It keeps the cereal crisp.
Crisp, and also you said like more
Right.
buoyant.
And milk just makes.
After you use the Elmer's glue, it would settle kind of flat. Would you then like spray on top of that the glycerin and stuff to make it look more
Yeah,
real?
if you think about a bowl of cereal, I mean, like literally within minutes.
Mushy.
Yeah.
You know, soaked in cereal, and so I get why they do it.
That's interesting.
So how did you get into this?
So, again, I started out shooting for the high end. It was a vacation, and that's how I got into stock. And then it was like, okay, so everybody, when they pick up a camera, they want to shoot landscapes and animals and those type of things. So I quickly found that selling good food images sold. And so that's kind of where it landed, and I had an interest for it. It was something that I could learn and do on my own. I could either make my own food or bought something like that pizza that we saw. Actually, that was garlic knot pizza. So it's just something that became very easy to do, and it makes me money. Really? And that's, kind of what I'm after. I mean,
ultimately, the goal is to eventually sell my house and get in an RV and travel around the country and live off of what I make on my portfolio on stock agencies and shoot more. Travel, food, and animal good landscapes are what make me money on stock agencies.
Animals?
Animals, good animals.
Like, what do you mean animals?
Hi, Teri. So this is Vinod here. So I have one question. So as a beginner, so if you have anything to suggest, like people who can get into this food photography. So what is the way? I mean, because from my end, yeah, earning money, that matters, but I'm very passionate about the photography, and it is easy for me to get shoot and get into the market, right? So, what would be your suggestion? Maybe I should join as an intern and to learn all these stuffs and get into the market, or what would be your suggestion? I have a passion, very serious passionate about this photography, and I wanted to get into this market. And as well as secondary is my money. I mean, for primary is not my money, so secondary is my money. So this is more towards passion.
So I would look up Christina Peters and the Food Photography Club. She has a Facebook group that's free. A lot of her resources are, depending on how deeply you want to get into it, but she gets, I mean, if you pay for her resources, she gives you contracts. She gives you things that, I mean, it's worth paying for.
She'll teach you the business.
She basically, and she's,
Can you go back one slide? Isn't that where it was?
of the ones.
With the sites.
Oh, wait.
There we go. Oops. Don't go on, go the other way. And we just.
So the Food Photography Club is Christina Peters. And again, she gives away a lot of free stuff, but she also, the behind the firewall piece that people pay for, there's videos on how to do stuff. There's contracts that you can download, things that she's been shooting for, clients like McDonald's and that for, 25, 30 years. So she knows that business. I've learned a lot from her. From being, I probably paid 2 years to peek behind her curtain, and then I'm like, I don't need this anymore. So anything, but definitely start there. She's got all kinds of resources, and she's really helpful as in the Facebook group. If you ask the question, and she'll critique and give you honest feedback about what to do, what not to do, why that looks like crap, and why, what you did right, that type of thing. So Dad would start there. It's not a cheap endeavor for sure.
That's okay. That's a big information for me. Definitely, it is going to help me out, and very great information indeed. So thank you so much for that.
And I'm trying to think if there's a book that I bought early on called Plate to Pixel. That would be another thing I would look for. That has a lot of really good information in it as well.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Any questions?
I don't see any more. Okay.
Yeah, this was really good. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And great presentation and good engagement. A lot of really good questions and answers here tonight.
How do I get out?
So stop sharing screen at the top. Or at the bottom then. There you go. And then we're back to this ugly group. All right, well, I guess we'll give everybody a few minutes back. Anything else? Anybody have anything else to add before we go? We do have 4 ribbons for Teri. Because she wasn't here. This is February 15th, last part of autumn, honorable mention. And Morning Magic, February, Teri Virbickis advanced third. And then the $1 Million Fall Morning, first place advanced. And this is just a recent one, Walk in the Water to the Sunset. with Cliff Lawson.
Oh, with the,
Second, yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
Congratulations.
This is really paying off. They have taken my photography images and processing to the next level. So,
Congratulations. That's great. The, so we also have, again, with all of what we just learned tonight, we have a couple months here. July 5th is, food and beverage and still life. So take what we learned tonight and you got a couple months to practice before the competition.
Yes.
Yeah, but Terry's not allowed in that one.
why not?
Third place.
I thought we were.
And
You know, you notice
That could be.
food is usually colored. What do we do with black and white?
That's why stock is also an option there.
Yeah,
Oh,
Still like.
You're still.
okay.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's the other thing about why I like this genre, the creativity is endless. I mean, it's the different type of food, the different way of shooting it, because again, I go to farmers markets and I shoot food at farmers markets. I go to farms and agricultural, and I go to the Palisades and how food gets to your table, and shooting orchards and shooting vineyards and shooting. And so it encompasses all that, not just these stage shots that you see here. A lot of that other stuff fits into my portfolio as well. I seek that kind of stuff out. I love that kind of stuff. Fun. Very good.
Yeah, this is good. Learned a lot.
Thanks, everybody. I'm gonna end the Zoom meeting. We're gonna head out. Bye.